entire sports world just stopped. LeBron James actually lost his cool live on ESPN, going right at Shaquille O'Neal. But the on-air fight was just the start. The chaos spilled backstage, blowing the lid off years of simmering tension. Stick with us. We've got the leaked audio the network tried to kill. So picture this, a live broadcast. We're in the 2025 to 2026 NBA season. Cameras are rolling, millions are watching, and LeBron James, a man who has perfected his image for 2 decades, is about to lose his composure in a way nobody could have predicted. Now, inside the NBA is the legendary post-game show, now on Selected NBA on ESPN broadcasts. After its iconic run on TNT from 1989 to 2025, starting this season, the show, along with NBA Tip-Off, now airs on Selected ABC and ESPN broadcasts. And that means Shaquille O'Neal, the 4-time champ who never minces words, now has an even bigger megaphone, a much bigger platform. And Shaq had been using it to throw some serious shade at LeBron that was not well received. Then Shaq took it to another level on his podcast, completely unloading on LeBron and today's players. The number one complaint from Shaq is that James is only this great because the league has gone completely soft. Now that comment alone is a declaration of war for any competitor, but Shaq wasn't finished. He said, quote, "You want me to give these MFers the same props you're giving them? That'll never happen. You can call it hate if you want." The 4-time champion didn't hold back. Look, LeBron James has heard it all in his career. The praise, the constant analysis, the scrutiny, and the criticism from every direction. With 42,975 points at the 2026 All-Star break, LeBron is in his own stratosphere. He's at the peak of the NBA scoring mountain. Since passing Kareem in 2023, he's the all-time scoring king. He's got 4 championships. He has played 23 seasons. And still, here is Shaquille O'Neal, his former Cleveland teammate, going on national TV and his own show to question his entire legacy. Shaq then doubled down, defending himself and Charles Barkley, who've been criticized by guys like Lakers head coach JJ Redick for ruining the game with their endless critiques of the league and things like load management. Shaq fired back. He said, "People say Charles and I are ruining the game because of how we talk about the product." Well, when those comments got back to LeBron, and they got back to him fast, something changed. LeBron was already on edge from comments made by other ESPN analysts. Remember that fiery March 2025 courtside showdown between LeBron and Stephen A. Smith? That was about comments regarding LeBron's son, the Lakers guard Bronny James. That incident was revisited when Smith made more remarks later. It set a precedent. LeBron proved he was ready to challenge somebody live on television. So when Shaq kept poking the bear, it was a ticking time bomb. The explosion happened right on an ESPN set. The cameras were rolling live. The producers figured they were getting a normal segment, maybe the usual playful jabs between Shaq and Charles Barkley. But what they got was LeBron James walking directly onto the set, calling out Shaq, and the situation escalated so fast that security guards had to literally get in between the two giants. Was it fake for the ratings? Was it planned? Absolutely not. The pure shock on Ernie Johnson's face said it all. This show has been hosted by Ernie since 1990, joined by Kenny Smith since 1998, Charles Barkley since 2000, and Shaquille O'Neal since 2011. This crew has seen it all, from Shaq and Barkley wrestling on camera to Charles literally falling asleep on air. But they had never witnessed anything close to this. A current player confronting an analyst during a live show. Security rushing in. The standoff was so intense that clips went viral across the internet in minutes. To get how we arrived at this moment, you have to look at the whole timeline, because this wasn't a sudden explosion. This was a fuse that was lit months, if not years, before it finally blew up on national television. LeBron James and Shaquille O'Neal share a complicated history that goes all the way back to the early 2000s. They faced each other 19 times in the NBA, and for the record, Shaq has a 12-7 winning record against LeBron. When LeBron hit the league in 2003 as the most hyped rookie in history, Shaq was already a 3-time champion and the most unstoppable force the center position had ever witnessed. For years, their relationship was built on mutual respect. Shaq praised the young LeBron, and LeBron admired Shaq's sheer power. And in 2009, they actually became teammates when Shaq signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers for 1 season. It was billed as the team up that would get LeBron that first championship. It didn't happen. Cleveland was bounced in the second round of the playoffs, but the two stayed on good terms. Now, let's jump to 2025, and everything is different. The entire dynamic between current players and retired legends in the media had become openly hostile, and LeBron was at the center of that storm. The Lakers star has been facing intense criticism lately, especially after his public feud with Stephen A. Smith and his claims that the NBA media coverage is broken. LeBron's argument was clear. The media were launching personal attacks on players, going way beyond basketball. He felt analysts were just using players, including his own son, as cheap content. James said it himself, "Never would I not allow people to talk about the sport or criticize players on the court. That is your job to criticize. If a guy is not performing, that is all part of the game. I get that. That's all part of it. But when you get personal with it, it's my job to not only protect my damn household, but to protect the players." This mindset put LeBron on a direct collision course, not just with Stephen A., but with every retired player in the media who constantly questioned the new generation's toughness. And Shaq was at the very top of that list. Shaquille O'Neal is all over. Inside the NBA, he's doing exclusive interviews, and he's on countless podcasts. His media presence is enormous, and he consistently uses it to argue that the current era just isn't as good, on his own terms. The war of words started quietly. LeBron would drop these little comments in interviews on social media, hinting that former players turned analysts were just bitter. He never named names, but we all knew who he was talking about. And one of them was Shaquille O'Neal, who confronted LeBron James over a jab aimed at him and Charles Barkley. Of course, Shaq and Chuck took notice, and they were not happy. Then Kendrick Perkins jumped in, saying, "I've been knowing LeBron since 1988. The problem that I have is, one, everything that comes out of LeBron James's mouth ain't the damn gospel." I mean, even his old teammates were turning on him. Perkins argued that today's players are just so sensitive that it just don't make any damn sense. You could feel the tension building everywhere. You had former players, now in media, who felt attacked by LeBron's comments on league coverage. Meanwhile, the current guys were rallying behind LeBron, feeling like the criticism from the old guard was just too much. And Shaq, he was right in the middle of it all, about to become the flashpoint for the entire conflict. Now, what made this LeBron-Shaq thing so explosive was that it was personal. Look, these weren't just two strangers yelling on social media. These guys were teammates. They shared a locker room. They knew each other's families. They'd eaten together. And now, one guy is questioning the other's legacy on national TV, while the other is calling him a hater. The entire NBA world was watching a friendship, or at least a professional bond, built on respect just fall apart in real time. And here's the thing, neither one was backing down. Now, before LeBron even got to Shaq, he had already shown he was willing to cross that line between player and media. This all started back in March 2025 at a Lakers game against the New York Knicks. That's when LeBron physically walked up to Stephen A. Smith on the court. It all began with Smith's critique of Bronny James during his rookie year. Smith had said on First Take that Bronny belonged in the G League. Well, LeBron had heard enough. So when they crossed paths courtside, he made sure Smith knew it. It's caught on camera. Social media explodes. Stephen A. later said, "It was a one-on-one confrontation, but then I wake up and everybody from ESPN and my agent and everybody else were sending me that this thing had gone viral. And so ultimately it was unavoidable. And that is why I have to discuss it now." Afterwards, Smith tried to play it cool, walking that diplomatic line and acknowledging LeBron's instincts as a dad, while also defending his right to be critical. He said, "That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent." But then, get this, over a year later on Logan Paul's podcast, Smith came back to it and he wasn't so diplomatic. He stated, "It was very disrespectful. I thought it was very unfair to me. I never did what he implied that I did. That was my issue. It was clear when he rolled up on me that he thought I went after his son to get at him because I critique him." Smith added, "To paint that narrative just because you don't like the fact I don't view you as the GOAT really pissed me off." The fallout from this was huge. Then Gilbert Arenas, who was trying to get his own gig at ESPN, chimed in with a funny but very pointed take. He said, "I'm in the middle of this right now and I got to take my side. LeBron James, if you ever do that, shh. Again, with my potential, boss. all hell going to break loose. Don't you ever in your M life walk up on a $100 million man during celebration? Then he started naming every ESPN analyst who'd have Stephen A's back over LeBron's. And that included Shaq. You know, we got Shaq, we got a Shaq. We got a Shaq. We got a Barkley Kenny. Now look, it was a joke, but underneath it all was a very real truth. The whole analyst community was closing ranks. By physically going at Stephen A, LeBron had given them all a reason to team up. So, LeBron went on the Pat McAfee show where he went after Smith for how he handled the whole thing. James compared Smith's media tour to a Taylor Swift run, basically saying Smith was milking the controversy for all it was worth. LeBron made it clear. He's fine with sports criticism, but he takes personal attacks dead seriously and feels it is his duty to protect his family and his teammates. But this whole thing, it was just the dress rehearsal. LeBron had crossed the line. Most athletes won't. He had confronted a media personality on live TV, and the result was a firestorm that took over the NBA news cycle for weeks. The question was never if it would happen again. The question was when and with whom. And as it turned out, the answer to with whom was the biggest personality in the NBA media game, a 7'1", 325-pound Hall of Famer named Shaquille O'Neal. And the situation was about to be way more dramatic than what happened with Stephen A. Smith. Now, the 2025-26 season was supposed to be this grand finale for LeBron. James and the Lakers, the team landed Luka Doncic in a massive trade, and the Slovenian superstar was putting up 34.7 points, 8.7 boards, and 8.8 assists, cementing himself as the league's top offensive weapon. With Austin Reeves emerging as a legitimate number 3 option, the Lakers were built for a title run. But the season got off to a terrible start for LeBron personally. The opening to LeBron's historic 23rd season came with a first for the future Hall of Famer, something that put a real damper on celebrating his longevity. During a summer workout, LeBron started dealing with sciatica, affecting his lower back and the right side of his body. The pain was bad enough to sideline him through all of Lakers training camp and deep into the 2025-26 season. He said, "Never in my life since I started playing the game of basketball have I ever not started the season. Missing the start of a season for the first time ever, that was devastating for a guy whose whole identity is built on being available." And, the media pounced. So when the NBA world finally saw LeBron return after missing 14 games with that sciatica, he looked rusty. And a lot of people started asking if this was finally the beginning of the end for his incredible run. The comments started flooding in, and his old teammate, now an analyst, Shaquille O'Neal, knows exactly how it looks when a player's career is winding down. And Shaq's commentary around this time was especially sharp. Shaq said, "Man, I don't want to be the one to say LeBron is a complimentary player. But look, I think LeBron himself knows and understands that at some point, this whole thing comes to an end, and LeBron's always been a team-first guy. So he's integrated now." On the surface, those comments might sound perfectly reasonable. But to LeBron James, a man who spent 23 years as the guy, the cornerstone, the system itself, being called a complimentary player on national television by an old teammate was a shot to the heart. For 2 decades, James was the sun everyone orbited around. But it looks like this is the new reality for the Lakers superstar. This season marks the very first time in his legendary career where he can actually take a step back and just be one of the guys. Then came the GOAT debate. Shaq said in a CBS Sports interview, "I think they should always keep it categorical. The best center, the best forward, the best guard, the best shooting guard. You can't compare a big man to a guard." Now, while that seems like a diplomatic answer, many read between the lines, seeing Shaq's refusal to crown LeBron as the GOAT as a deliberate shot. And LeBron noticed. Allegedly, Shaq even confronted LeBron James for disrespecting legends like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson by calling them soft. The tension was just spiraling out of control, with each man escalating through different platforms. Shaq used his ESPN appearances and his podcast, while LeBron fought back through interviews, social media, and the court of public opinion. When the playoffs arrived, the pressure cookers were turned all the way up. The Rockets were down Durant, but the Lakers were missing their top 2 scorers, Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Both Doncic and Reeves suffered season-ending injuries during that April 2nd loss to the reigning champion OKC Thunder. Doncic was dealing with a grade 2 hamstring strain, and Reeves was battling a grade 2 oblique strain. Suddenly, LeBron was thrust right back into that lead role, the very same role Shaq had been saying he couldn't handle anymore. Before the game, ESPN's own Shaquille O'Neal sent a clear warning to the Lakers. He said, "This is a must-win for the Lakers with the Rockets' #1 guy down." Then he continued, "The question is, who's going to be that guy for the Lakers?" Shaq added, "We all expect LeBron to do it, but we can't forget he's 41 years old." Every comment Shaq made felt like another needle. Another public reminder that one of the greatest to ever play was aging, that he was supposedly diminishing, that his time was ending. And LeBron, who has always used criticism as pure rocket fuel, was absorbing every single word. Because despite being 41, James was still an elite player who could win you games, which he proved in 2026 by averaging nearly 21 points per game, over 60 appearances, then leading LA to a first-round playoff win. He was answering Shaq on the court, but the on-court answers weren't silencing the talk. So eventually, LeBron decided to answer him in person on Shaq's own stage. The immediate aftermath of that confrontation was absolute chaos. Clips were everywhere on social media within minutes. Every major sports outlet made it their lead story. Debates erupted on every talk show, podcast, and comment section in the entire sports world. Chris Broussard ranked LeBron James 6th in his Laker hierarchy, putting the 41-year-old behind Magic, Kobe, Kareem, Shaq, and Jerry West. Even among the Lakers' own legends, analysts were putting LeBron behind Shaq, which just added fuel to the perception that the media machine was working against him. LeBron James's 8-year chapter in Los Angeles might be closing. The 41-year-old hits unrestricted free agency this summer, fresh off the Lakers being swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder in the second round. That sweep was absolutely devastating. After carrying a depleted squad past the Rockets, LeBron and the Lakers simply had nothing left against the defending champs, and the media showed no mercy. Rob Parker claimed LeBron James has nothing left in the tank and urged the superstar to retire. Analyst after analyst took their shots, and the prevailing narrative shifted. It wasn't about what LeBron had accomplished in his 23rd season, carrying a broken roster deep into the playoffs at age 41, but about what he could no longer do. After 23 years on top, he's no longer the undisputed player who can just demand whatever contract he wants. As ESPN's Dave McMenamin reported, Laker officials would sometimes speculate what James was actually worth without that famous name on the back of his jersey. The number was always way below the max. According to reports, there's a growing sentiment around the league that LeBron should take a minimum salary contract if he truly cares about winning another championship. From king to a minimum salary player, that was the narrative shift happening in real time. And it was the exact same narrative that Shaq had been pushing, gently at first, then more aggressively all season. LeBron saw it as a coordinated attack aimed at diminishing his legacy. Shaq saw it as just honest analysis. The truth, as it usually does, probably lies somewhere in the middle. Now, more than ever before, not in 2010, not in 2014, or 2018, LeBron James has complete freedom over his own future. At 41 years old, James owes the basketball world nothing. As a 4-time champion with a legitimate GOAT argument and decades of highlights, including playing alongside his own son on an NBA court, he is still an elite player. As Shaq himself said, knowing him and his team since high school, I think he will definitely set up a farewell tour. So I'm not worried about that. But, you know, a guy that has accomplished everything, #1 scorer, championships, all-star appearances, I think he wants to put his record so far out that nobody will ever reach it. So knowing him, he's probably going to play another 2 years. And here's the complicated part. Even amid all the conflict, Shaq still spoke about LeBron with a clear degree of admiration. Shaq has a sort of love-hate banter with analysts and media types. He isn't afraid to call them out on their LeBron hate and still be able to laugh with them later. When Skip Bayless used a Dwayne Wade interview to attack LeBron, Shaq actually defended him. He even said, "We carried each other and that's it. Let it go." So Was Shaq trying to take a shot at LeBron, or was he just a media analyst giving an honest take that LeBron just couldn't handle? The clash on ESPN didn't clear anything up. In fact, it just made things murkier. What that argument really exposed was the core conflict at the center of sports media today. The legends who once ran the league are now paid to analyze the stars who run it now. And those comments, even if they're meant to be fair, just carry a different kind of sting when they come from someone who's been to the top of that mountain. LeBron isn't bothered by criticism from some guy who never played a minute, but hearing it from a four-time champion himself, that's a whole different story. LeBron himself has talked about rivals in his career, saying, I wouldn't say better, and it's all part of the book. You have those antagonizers that pop up throughout your journey. As LeBron now weighs his options in free agency, from possibly retiring to rejoining Cleveland or even teaming up with Steph Curry, one thing is now undeniable. This confrontation with Shaq is going to be one of the defining moments of his final seasons. It's not about the words they exchanged, but what the moment stood for. A legend battling to control his own narrative, refusing to let anyone, even an old teammate, write his final chapter. Security had to step in that day on the ESPN set, separating two of the biggest names in the history of basketball. But the question that hangs in the air long after the cameras cut away and the clip went viral is whether LeBron James and Shaquille O'Neal can ever fix this. Because in the world of the NBA, beefs don't just fade away, and this one feels like it could last forever.